Why is it so hard to pivot to sustainability?
Habit, ignorance, short-term thinking, thinking that the actions that we perform are negligible and won't matter. 5 or 10 years down the line, we can't even imagine what this climate situation is going to be. We have little hints, but it's very difficult to really think that way through long term. 5 years isn't that long, but we're already in the midst of it. I think it was some local politician or someone who said we're the first generation to be experiencing some of the effects of climate change and the last generation to be able to do anything about it. So I think it's a fact of habit and myopic thinking or not thinking at all, and under the illusion that what we do doesn't matter. And I think we need major structural change as well as individual and communal action. But that's so huge, and it's hard to think of where to begin.
So if you implement a carbon tax and you make it aggressive and you start at $40, $75, $100 a ton, what you're going to incentivize is energy efficient behavior, and what you're going to disincentivize is energy wasteful behavior. You won't have to worry about people idling cars because it's going to be so expensive to do that people will turn them off. And if you look at some of the projections of what is needed now to just stick with Paris climate change targets, starting at 3% total reductions this year to perpetuity, you need big plans. There's subsidies to the fossil fuel industry of $5 trillion a year globally. And if you think about some of that money that is given away and some of the structures that could be harvested in order to make some change, I think there's a lot of options on the table. Carbon tax has just been one of them. But all I'm saying is it's important to consider markets and the economy because they have tremendous power. And you got to harvest them and not think about that they're in conflict. They can work together and be very effective.
I would argue that you're exactly right. We need to harvest that economic incentive in an appropriate way. But to do that, we need to actually change how we govern. If it was as easy as a carbon tax and we could pass a carbon tax, we'd make progress towards that. That's a very difficult thing to do policy-wise, not in terms of setting the carbon tax and putting it in place. It's getting the political will to do so. So I see this as, I don't think these things are mutually exclusive. Judith was pointing this out before we walked in. I think we do ourselves a disservice when we say it has to be one or the other. It has to be large structural change in the terms of a large policy. Maybe it's a carbon tax, maybe it's tradable permit markets, maybe it's very strict regulations, or it's personal consumption pattern changes and personal responsibility. I think we all wear two different hats, or more than two, but at least two. We wear a citizen's hat, we wear a consumer's hat. When we're wearing that consumer's hat, we're thinking about our own self-interest, and we're thinking about things that we want to do, and we can change our own preferences so that we purchase better, we make better decisions. When we put that citizen hat on, we're supposed to be thinking about our community. We're supposed to be thinking about society as a whole, and I think those are much larger structural changes that we talk about at that point. And I don't think that just putting one of the hats on to solve the problem is going to get us there. I think it's really a combination of both.